Right, today I want to talk about clicker. And I know that there's skeptical people out there that really don't like the idea of clicker or don't understand it. And I was one of them. I was the most skeptical person in the whole world, I reckon, about 15 years ago when I first heard of it, because I could not understand how clicker can work and teach a dog. But I just want you to think of it as a very unique sound in a dog's world. And there are people that will say, I just use the word yes. And I just want you to try and work out how many times you might say yes in your ordinary conversation. So, for example, yes, I'm just going to go to the shops and yes, I'll get that for you. Don't worry. Yes. And can you just go and, yes, no, don't do that, please. And it just becomes white noise to a dog. Whereas the click is unique and it just addresses the dog. And it says to the dog, once the dog learns, it says to the dog, love that. What you've just done, this second, this moment in time, I love it. And it pinpoints the behaviour to the second they do it. So if I'm dealing with a dog that is abused and shut down, for example, and I've dealt with many dogs like that, then the ears are flat against its head, its back is hunched over, the tail is curled underneath, tight under its belly, the eyes are terrified. Then gradually, once the dog gets used to my voice as I walk in and I start laughing and joking with the new owner and we have a nice cup of tea and chatting away, so the dog is getting used to my voice and my happy ways and my nice voice, and I'm not approaching it, I'm not going near it, and then I can start throwing the treat to the dog. And I always need a hungry dog, so I would ask the owners not to feed it from the night before, and I would turn up with boxes, these containers full of the tastiest treats. You can't have like just boring biscuit. It's got to be, even if it has to be steak, cut up tiny pieces, roast chicken or sausages, and I would take lots of different treats, because if the dog didn't like chicken and I only had chicken, I'd be stuffed. So I would have, beef and chicken and sausages and cheese and everything like that, so that I could make sure that there was something that the dog liked. And when I'd have a shut down dog, I could then throw the treat to the dog. And as soon as the dog's mouth touched the treat, I would click. So it would land in front of its chest if it was laying down hiding. And then gradually I would then be able to, the minute the ear moves, little tiny fraction, the ear just comes forward, or the little tail just little wag, or even just the softening of the eye, I could then click and throw the treat so that it would land here. And then gradually the dog realised it was getting rewarded when it wasn't fearful, when it was relaxing more. And then gradually the dog would come round. And I had one dog that was under a table with its new owner for months and months. And I finally, and it might take me 4 or 5 hours to work with a dog, because obviously I can't work with the dog all the time. When I'm working with the dog, I would work and then explain to the owner while I give the dog a rest and a break. Because obviously you can't bombard it with all of this information and this knowledge. So the dog has to have a rest in between. And so that's why it would take me so long to work on a dog. And very often in the beginning, I used to work with one dog in the morning for the whole morning and then a dog in the afternoon. But in the end, I just used to have to work with one dog a day, because it would take everything out of me. I would have to concentrate so hard, 100%. Every fibre of my body would be working with the dog. My expressions, my body language, and communicating with the dog so that the dog and I understood each other. And it was exhausting, I have to say. Now, the way that I would do it is that I would work with the dog and I would ask the owner to watch me, and I would be explaining as I'm going along. Because some trainers, they go out to a home and they get the owner to work with the dog. But I found that it was very difficult for some owners, especially if they were new to clicker and they'd never worked with a clicker and had no idea of the concept. It was too much for them to cope with the clicker, the treats, the words, the hand signals all at once. So what I would do is I would work with the dog and teach the dog, and the dog would be on board. The click and the treat works. It does something to the dog, and I don't understand what it does, but I promise you, in, I would say 99% of the time, the dog would get it. And it's kind of like a chemical thing between the clicker and the food and the brain. I don't know, but I'm telling you it works. And so the owners would watch me, and then once I've taught the dog and I've gone through my program and the dog is on board and understands everything that I'm asking it to do, then I would get the owner to come and stand beside me, and they would then mirror me. So as I'm doing hand signals, I'd just say to them, copy me, and they would mirror me, and the dog would look up at me and then look up at them and go, all right, okay, I got it, you're doing it, okay. And then I would get the owner to give them the treat. So I would click and I'd say, copy me, and now you treat the dog when you hear the treat, the click. And then eventually I could give the clicker to the owner. So it's like passing the power over, if you like, you know. So once I've then, and I sort of come back from it, and then the owner starts taking over. And I found that that was much the best way to work, because otherwise the owner's got too overwhelmed with it all. And it's easy for me because I just do it. It's just, I've been doing it for so many years, and I just do it without even thinking about it. I can catch a dog doing something that I like while I'm talking to somebody else, and I just catch it out the back of my head, you know, because I'm so used to watching the dogs and their behaviour. So the way that clicker works is that you reward everything that you love, and you either ignore or redirect everything that you don't like. So eventually the dog starts doing more and more of the things you like, and you wean them off the things that you don't like. So the dog, when it gets rewarded for doing things, it wants to do more of them, and it keeps trying, and it's using its brain to work out how to please you and how to get the click. So then they start offering behaviours that are like, they can be very funny when they start trying to make you give the click and the treat to see if that will work. They'll try all sorts of things, and it is very funny to see them, and it's great fun. The dogs love it, and it exhausts them mentally. So if you've got a working dog like a collie or a Springer, you can't tire them out physically. You could, because they're bred to run all day, and you will never tire them out. But you can work with them with clicker to get them to do things inside the house like an assistance dog. That's what I want you to think of, is that clicker is teaching your dog to help you, to be an assistance dog for you. So it is doing things in your house so that you're not spending hours and hours and hours trying to physically exhaust a dog, but that you're mentally exhausting a dog. So you can have a big box of toys, and you can ask your dog, can you find Freddy Frog, or can you find Nelly Elephant, and you can tip all the toys out, and you can ask, can you tidy up, and it will put all its toys away, and you can carry on watching telly while the dog is busy tidying up the house. But also, it's very handy. The dog gets great enjoyment out of helping you. So you can teach it to open and close cupboards and doors and things like that. think of it as an assistance dog that you're getting to work for you, and the dogs love it. So that's how I work with Clicker, to get the dogs using their brain, and it is the best fun. So when people would phone me up and say, look, I don't need all this Clicker nonsense, I just want you to come out and stop my dogs jumping up. And that's not, I couldn't do that. I can't just go out and stuff. I have to work with the whole of the environment of the dog and see how it reacts with the owners and what the owners are like and what their ideas on training were, and then start right from scratch. And when I get my puppy, hopefully in early August, I am going to show you, I'm going to do videos and right from the beginning and go through all of the things of how to teach this pup to be my assistance dog, should I ever get that sick again. Because when I was sick, I so needed an assistance dog. I couldn't even lift my head from the pillow, and I was months and months in bed on oxygen. So I want to teach this dog to be my assistance dog. Not only because it's going to be great fun, but you never know, if I get sick again, that it will be handy to have a dog to help you. So what you're going to do is I'm going to start from the beginning and work through all of the different things to teach this dog, this puppy, how to work for me. And it doesn't matter, because you can follow me along, and it doesn't matter how old the dog is. If it's still got some functioning brain power, you can work with it, okay? And of course, if a dog is deaf, you can use a light if you flash it towards you. I call it a flicker instead of a clicker if you've got a deaf dog. So there's nothing really that what dog you can't work with. And the more intelligent the dog, the more likely it's going to be anxious, because they're thinkers and they're worriers. So you really need to get them working for you in the house so that they're busy doing things and that they don't have to worry about, oh, how am I going to cope with this? What's going on over there? So you can just redirect them and get them working for you and saying, can you put all your toys away? Great job. So now, when people would phone me up and ask me to come out because their dogs are jumping up, not coming back, barking, pulling on a lead, or suffering from anxiety, I would have to start and go through a program with the dog. And once I've taught the dog, and then the owner is on board, and then everybody in the household must do it the same. They must all be following the same rules. Because if I taught the dog not to jump up, and then the family come home afterwards because they haven't been there and watched me work, and as they come home they go, yeah, come on then, yeah, come on, and the dog has jumped up, it's all the hard work gone. So everybody has got to understand the same training methods and work together. And it's got to be zero tolerance, You mustn't, if you work out the family, what is and is not allowed. So whether the dog is allowed on the sofa, whether it's allowed on the beds, whether it's allowed to have tidbits, whether it's allowed to jump up, they must all be written in stone. And I would suggest that you don't let the dogs jump up, you don't give them tidbits from the table. You can choose whether to let your dog up on your sofa and your bed, of course. It's your dog, it's your sofas. But in a controlled environment, the dog is allowed on the sofa when it's invited up, and when it's told to get off, it must get off. So there's got to be a structure to the training, so that the dog knows exactly what it's allowed to do and what it's not allowed to do. You can't have half the family giving in to the dog and the rest of the family being zero tolerance on it, because that's not fair. Everybody's got to be doing it. And what I suggest is that you put a list on the fridge or on the wall to say the rules of the dog, so that everybody knows the rules. And it's not a joke, you know. You're not like, I'm just going to sneak this in the table, under the table, and give it a bit of treats, you know, because then the dog will always be scavenging around tables, chancing its arm. So I'm going to go through different videos and try and explain my methods and my hand signals. And it's a simple concept. If the dog does something that you like, you click, you go and give it a treat, you give it a hand signal and say the word. That's the way it works. So you click, you go give it a treat, give it a hand signal and say the word. You're saying this is the word and this is the hand signal for the action you have just done. So I'll explain it all in my next video. So I'll speak to you soon. Bye.